this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogmen, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good? I'm doing good. It's Even though I know there's a little bit staggered, we're down in the home stretch of the year into the holidays, Christmas, New Year's, and it's incredible to believe that we're going into 2023. Okay, it's like sometimes, like I think that if anybody would have told us back like in 2020, well, you know what, for those of us that were alive back then, first it was, the Y2K, 2000, nothing happened. That was a big like nothing, you know. They were saying, computers, or, they can't reset, economic collapse, end of the world. Yeah, we're going to be leaving the Stone Age, and nothing happened. But I'll tell you what, if anybody would have told us at the beginning of 2020, end of 2019, what was coming our way, it would have been, like, hold tight. And here we are going into 2023. All right. Talk about interesting times to live in. Yeah, definitely. This falls into the interesting times. Everything is good. Again, I want to repeat, please subscribe to me on Substack. On my Substack, the newsletter comes out 2-3 times a week. I got a lot of interesting stuff, whether it's an article, I'll put links to podcasts, some of my old shows, really interesting stuff that sometimes people forget about. So don't forget about that. But let's get on to the good part. The good part is who I have as a guest tonight. This gentleman, this is the first time that he's here on Stories of the Supernatural, and his name is Ryushin Malone. Now, he discovered alien phenomena in 2018 by collecting and examining evidence that was online from different sources. He made efforts to get published, but was ignored. What he found was that the elite had been trading humans for technology with aliens from Orion, and that humans were created by extraterrestrials. The Nazca Lines are a star map of the Orion Group's territory markings to ward off other extraterrestrials. The Orion Group is also known as the Black Suns and is allegedly a satanic force who takes over star systems. The Orion Group has been living underground, eating human beings, namely children, by adrenochrome harvesting and drinking their blood in the DUMBs, which is deep underground military bases in secret. In other words, follow the money. And I'm a big proponent of that. There has been constant conflict between them over humanity and the earth. You would know it as God versus the devil or good versus evil. Moloch is Orion. The reality is Orion rules this world. They have been coming here for thousands of years, using us for slaves, food, and drug in the form of the adrenochrome. The Orion Group is a satanic force who takes over star systems. The elite of the world have been secretly worshiping them and working for them, feeding them people as food in secret. Boy, do I got a lot of interesting questions for this gentleman. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, Ryushin?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and hello, Marlene. Thank you so much for having me.
No, on the contrary,
I
it's my
know
pleasure.
my introduction just sounds very interesting, doesn't it?
Whoa, it's like, where do I start with this? Because it was
Yeah,
just so funny because I'm here talking about 2019 into 2020, but did this start for you in 2018, or
it
was that the
actually
culmination
it
point of
actually
your research?
it actually started in 2017, the summer of
Okay.
2017.
Okay.
Before any of this, I was actually teaching Zen Buddhism, the
Okay.
sitting art of meditation, basically. And one day during the summer of 2017, I felt a touch underneath my chin, and it lifted up my head. And when I opened my eyes and looked down, I could see a translucent being with black eyes. And a few moments later, a second being stepped out around the left side of this being, with an iron rod about 2 feet long and a quarter collar at the end of it. And it pressed it up against my neck for a few seconds and then pulled back and disappeared behind the first being. And
Okay.
the first being dropped my head and stepped backwards, turned right, and then disappeared. Like they were not even like they weren't even there. But they were translucent. I could see through them, and they were about 3 feet tall. But I could see their eyes for sure, black eyes.
So they were
And
both the same type of beings, though.
yes, they were both the same type. And I
Okay.
would know, considering I've typed about 16 different species of extraterrestrial off the internet.
What would be the closest thing? Because I know there's difference, but the grays. There's some that are made the rounds more that people are more
Yeah.
familiar with. What
Yes.
would you describe that
Well,
they kind of look like?
it actually took me about 2 to 3 years to figure out what an actual gray looks like.
Okay.
And if you do look at the images at my website, theorionlines.com, you'll notice that
Mm-hmm.
most of them look very strikingly similar, with
Okay.
the big head, bald head,
Right.
no ears, big black eyes. They mostly look like this, very skinny.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very common thing throughout the universe, evidently our universe.
Okay.
Um, uh, Now, the only other person I could find, there were a few people I could find, but the one that comes to mind right now who had similar experiences was um, uh Baba, Yabi Baba, the woman, the blind seer.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about? But she
No,
was
I saw something about it on your website when I was going through there, but I'm going to ask you something real quick.
yeah.
Which what was the effect of this revelation? Because basically that's what it sounds like to
Yeah.
you. Did
Oh
you just
my
like
god. I was very cool and calm. Like, I no one was there though. It was just me sitting
right?
there. Nobody showed up for the day. So I was alone.
Okay.
I packed up everything and I went home and I freaked out.
Okay,
I
that's the point.
freaked I
Yeah.
freaked the F out. And
Yes.
I
Okay.
instantly started researching, instantly started
Right.
grabbing as
Okay.
much information as much evidence as possible. A week after that experience, the
Okay.
Nazca alien mummies, two different species of extraterrestrial, were found in the Peru desert
Right.
in 2016, and they were released via Gaia
Right.
TV
That they
the summer
because
of
yeah, I know that
2017. And when they provided x-rays, and when as soon as I saw the x-rays, I knew that they couldn't fake nature. I knew
mhm.
they were real.
And the reason I want to ask you this is I remember reading something about that, and they were saying, and again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it because nowadays I don't believe anything that's written sometimes, that
No.
these were basically either stillborn human fetuses or, like a malformed human fetus, that kind of deal that was mummified. And,
Yeah.
because of course the elements up there lend itself to the mummification process.
Yeah.
So, but when you saw
No.
this, you're like,
The
hey,
As soon as I saw the x-rays, I knew they were real. And
okay,
what I mean, later on, well, I mean, a week after that, so that'd be 2 weeks after my initial
hmm
encounter, I was sitting down watching a Netflix special called Empowered Human, and I
okay,
came across a picture of King Akhenaten and Queen
okay,
Nefertiti, and
hmm
they were sitting on their lap, the same species of 2 foot tall extraterrestrial beings were sitting in their laps.
which they're portrayed though as their children, supposedly.
That's what
Even
they said. Yes, they
right. But that elongated head with Akhenaten, that's always
that
been questionable.
those beings were the three children, but obviously not. They're the same species as the extraterrestrial.
Okay,
So
so which absolutely, we're putting our spin on it, and we see that still thing, oh, there's Akhenaten and Nefertiti with the children, but in
right.
reality, we really don't know for sure.
Well,
Well, I'm
I
saying,
from
I'm saying
from
from somebody
this
that
perspective, they're the same species, so
so
they're not their children.
so let me. It sounds almost like this is not the first time. Do you think that they did this to you? Then
Who
the that they took
that
whatever
I've
it
had
was.
that I've had experience?
Well, no, that because it almost I want to say when you saw these beings take that thing from you, like lift up your chin and do
Yeah,
whatever they did, it
right.
almost sounds like there was a familiarity about it, and for some reason you were able to see them this time. You see what I'm saying?
I've never experienced that before.
No?
I have experienced many years before that. I woke up and there was an alien gray in my face, about 5 inches from my face, and it held me paralyzed while it
Okay.
looked deeply into my eyes
So
for
let me
about five
ask you,
minutes. It was fantastic. It scared the
when
shit
you
out of me.
saw those two beings, the
Yes.
ones that held up your chin,
Yeah.
when did you feel anything physically afterwards? Like, was there a change in your health or anything like that?
No, no,
Nothing.
I felt no malice from these beings either. I didn't feel
Okay.
any terror or anything like that. It was very peaceful, and I didn't experience any kind of illness or feeling better at all.
Okay.
So, I don't know what they did. I don't know if they were taking
Right.
something out of me, or they were putting something into me, or it was a placebo. I have no idea, but I knew they were interested in me, and
Mhm.
after that, it was spectacular. So about a year after that discovery or connection,
Okay.
and they're not only in with King Akhenaten, but they're also in Sumerian times being taken over.
Okay.
These little beings being taken over. But let me think here. But they also ran tests on them. They are not from this planet. They do not.
Okay.
Um, uh, their DNA is not of this planet. They do not match anything on this planet. And if anything, they were close to being pterodactyl. So that's what they came up with, and from their own scientific, you know, doings down in Peru. So, and they carbon dated them about 1,500 years ago. King
Do you
Akhenaten
think that
was
it was what was the results that they said of the DNA? Because I know sometimes they kind of like describe it, but really they don't describe anything conclusive one way or the other.
well, they were not human.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they weren't human. There is a link below on the first page. There's a link below that you can get to called the Alien Project .com, where they have the entire readout of the whole clear scientific evidence of their DNA analysis and carbon dating
Okay.
and all that. Yep,
Okay.
that's the people who found the bodies and put them out and did the scientific testing on them. I'm nothing more than connecting these beings throughout time. So
Okay.
um
Do you think that they, because I know some people have said, I'm going to use the Greys against as an example, that they're
uh-huh.
basically I don't know, for lack of a better word, like the servants. In other words, they just do the legwork. Do you think this was still the
I
same case?
well, I don't. I think that the Nazca alien, the beings sitting with King Akhenaten are
Hmm.
actually the Christian God,
Okay.
the ones who created humanity, and
Okay. So,
they weren't worshiping the sun disk. That was actually their vehicle. and these beings who they were telling, or who they were saying were their daughters, were actually Aten, or the one true God. That's what they were called.
Right,
Aten.
because prior to that, they had a pantheon. The Egyptian gods had gods
That's
as in
right.
plural.
There were many gods, like
Right.
and you can clearly see that in the Sumerian times, 2,000 years before King Akhenaten, these little beings being captured and brought to kneel before these other beings, who I believe are the Orion Group and the Alpha Draconian, Alpha and Omega, the ones who've been ruling over Earth for almost 6,000 years. But they fight each other back and forth, and that's
Okay.
a clear example is when King Akhenaten came into power, and
Mm-hmm.
these beings were declared. They got rid of the old gods, and there was only
Exactly.
one god declared, and that was Aten, the one true God. And that was the beginning of monotheism. Not only that, but they're the only species of extraterrestrial ever depicted in their likeness throughout all of human history, which is very fascinating. And
Right.
then after his rule, the old gods came back, which tells me
Right.
that the Orion Group and the Draco regained control over Earth. But you could see throughout all of human history, there's always um, like a battle in the sky that shows up out of nowhere. Like in the 1500s
Okay.
in Germany, there were ships that appeared in the sky, cylindrical shaped craft, where they were being attacked by spherical ships, spherical vehicles, and so it's the same thing throughout time.
So let
Also,
me ask you, but they don't all this thing where they're harvesting humans or especially children for the adrenochrome. This is not basically the ones that you're saying created us. This is another
no,
group that
yes,
basically feeds on us.
took over. Yes, yes. Now, if you check out my website and go to We Were Made, you'll see
Mm-hmm.
that there is just an overwhelming collection of a Christian art that has everything with UFOs in it. It's just filled with UFOs and
Okay.
everything, and usually there's a
Hold
beings
on a minute.
chasing.
Right. There's it, and I know that in a lot of cases, people. This is okay. I'm showing. This is your
Oh,
website.
that's Orion. It's under
Okay.
Orion.
Okay. Let's see.
Uh, if you go up into the top, at the top there,
Okay.
that's another part of my.
Here, Orion.
Yeah, no, go up to We Were Made.
Let's see. We were made. Is this across the top?
Yeah,
Let
or
me see.
wherever you see We Were Made.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I'm looking for that.
It's up at the top.
It's up at the top.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Here we go. Here we go. The
So
crimes against humanity. Okay.
so what's going on is Lou Elizondo, who is
Mm-hmm.
the head of the Pentagon program, came out and started talking about the balance, demonic beings, how everything you have been taught might not have been completely and totally accurate. And so they're preparing to tell everyone the truth about God and the devil and angels and demons and what's really been going on here. And they have to, because basically I found all the evidence to that revealed them.
Okay.
So
Now, let me ask you.
uh-huh.
Obviously, they've been here for thousands of years. Whether, like you said, whether
Very
they're
they it's possible they've been here for millions. Who
for
knows?
millions, right?
But
Why do you
what
think they're going to do? Why do you think the disclosure is going to happen now?
well, first of all, we have three species of extraterrestrials in the public domain that we
Okay.
know of, that we have x-rays of. We also have the revealing of the Orion Group. We have the evidence of the what the Nazis did, trading human beings for technology. They targeted the Jews for, I believe, yeah, up above Moloch there. You can see the
Mhm.
Sumerian, you see the little beings. They're
Yes.
being taken over. That was 2,000 years before King Akhenaten.
Right, yeah, it shows like they got him around the on a leash, for
Yeah,
lack of a better
right.
word in that one.
Yeah, standing on them and doing all that stuff. Yeah, they took over the show. And I think it's very interesting how we were led to believe that these were giants taking over human beings, and now that we have the little beings, we know that that's not the case.
Right,
So
right. It's just
it
the
it
context as for what you're saying. It's not that they're
but
yeah,
it's
and I see here
also
that one sitting
it-
here on the lap, just like the Nefertiti, Akhenaten.
it's also this war that's been raging on between God and the devil this whole time. So um but yeah, that's what it's getting to. Yeah, with the whole Nazi thing. Yeah, what I figured out was I was going through the Nazi UFOs. You see Jesus. Maybe we'll just talk about what's on the screen. That'd be a lot
No,
easier.
that's fine. You know
So
what? I'm looking
that's
through
fine.
this because I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah,
You've amassed so much information here.
well, it's the evidence that I've amassed. It's very important to you see the Codex Gigas up there.
Mm-hmm.
A monk allegedly wrote that in a night, which I don't believe, but it's
Right,
actually the same being with the Mayan. Do you see
right.
that? As you see
Yes,
how it's the
exactly.
same being? It's the exact
Yes,
same being with the hands are up, with sharp
yes.
claws and sharp feet, and it's kind of squatting.
Let
It's
me
the
ask you,
same exact being.
do you think this is representing then we'll use the word Moloch or which is
Uh,
Orion? Is that
I don't think that's Moloch. I think that is the Alpha Draconian, who is a much bigger lizard person, 9
okay?
to 15 feet tall, very powerful, very muscular, 9 to 15 feet tall. Yeah, big, very dangerous, extremely dangerous.
Okay, so
They've
let me
been,
ask you, then the
yeah,
Alpha Draconian, would you say that they're
yeah,
look like the what
yes,
reptilian kind of features?
absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're reptilian. Yep. But there's
o-
two different types of reptilian that we know of.
Okay.
There's the Alpha Draconian reptilian from
Mhm.
Thurbon in the Draco star system, and then there's another reptilian who I believe if you take your cursor over just a little bit to the
Okay.
right, that one,
Okay.
nope, just a little bit down.
Down
Yep.
here that
Nope, the other one, that being right there, I believe is a reptilian
right. Yeah,
from
yeah, that does look
from
like it.
Orion.
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
do they all originate in Orion, but they're just
No.
different species, or they all have different points of origin?
Many, no, they all have different points of origin. The Orion group has different species in it that makes up the
Okay.
Orion group. The Orion group is a satanic force who takes over star system, and I was able
Okay.
to prove that by um well, it's kind of complicated. Basically, we were being set up for an adrenochrome harvest that was going to wipe out humanity until the
Mhm.
military double crossed the Orion group in 2018. And all the elite were told that we were going to get the axe.
Right. Okay.
All the elite were told that we were going to all get called, and that
Okay.
was it for us. So
Right.
2022, all these stupid Satan worshippers start showing up going, prepare, never ending astral vampires. That's from Marilyn Manson. Another
Okay.
one saying invasion, prepare to be abducted.
Right.
And then you
Okay.
have all of these people making drawings of UFOs attacking people. All these Satan worshippers are drawing this shit. And I'm watching it going, no, that's not going to happen, because I saw it get dismantled by the US military. Pretty crazy, right?
Well, let
Which
me ask you something. Why?
uh-huh.
How did they? How can I say? How did they betray him? In other words, how did they double cross him? They didn't go along with the program, or what did they do or not
Well,
do?
it's very complicated. Do you see the ships above? That's a very important. Do you see the UFOs
Yes.
in the Christ? You see how they're chasing each other? Well, that's
Yes.
God and the devil. That's the demons and the angels chasing each other. That's why there's
Okay.
two of them.
Okay.
in the starcrafts, and that, those paintings are like hundreds of years old, so
Yes. Yes.
all right.
And this is basically, so let me ask you, what were we created to be used for
uh,
as
I
food,
be-
or were we just created and then one of them
right.
decided, hey, we're gonna feed on them? What do you
Well,
think?
I believe that we were created as a workforce, a work labor
Okay.
force
Okay.
initially, and
Okay.
then they were taken over, and we were turned into, whatever, slaves, reproduction vehicles, food, drug, adrenochrome. Yeah. So you can
Okay.
see all this stuff in the skies
Mm-hmm.
with these paintings, all these UFOs, mechanical machines.
Right.
And then when you start getting into hell, you'll start seeing what they do in hell and why hell was. And it's not what we've been told. It's not what we've been told because they found that if they lie to us, then they can maintain power over
Oh,
humanity,
absolutely. I think that,
and
of
that's what
course.
they did. That's what
Oh
they
yeah, no,
did,
no, that sometimes,
and
yeah, it's like,
which afforded them, the opportunity to, you know, have these pedophile rings that they love.
let me ask you, so you see this picture, the one that is showing on the screen is
Y-
for the podcast listeners. I'll describe it to you. This looks like it's, who is this with this? What it looks like a flying saucer? What is that? Or what, or a hat? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
That's very interesting. See, and that's the thing, that all the symbology sometimes is in plain sight, but it's always off to the side or somewhere where, unless you really know what you're looking for, you just don't catch it. It's like,
you,
oh,
you see how that ship's on fire?
yeah,
That's
I
because
see that.
they're at war with each other, fighting over humanity.
Okay, through the flying.
And what I've
Yeah,
discovered
flying
is
robes.
that the orbs, the orb-like
Mm-hmm.
craft, are actually that of the positive aliens. They were also known as Athelion, which is
Okay.
Latin for um, angel or
Okay.
fire or sun. And yeah, you can see all these examples
Yeah, this is
of
this is fascinating.
these crashing UFOs. And this is ancient, stuff. So
Sure.
it hasn't been this weird thing that's been happening since 47.
Right, right, right.
They've
Everybody thinks of
always
the Roswell crash and everything,
they've
like,
always
yeah.
been here. It's just that the elite have been keeping it a big secret. They've been calling it something called night first, which I'll get into
Okay.
in a moment. Yeah, that's what it's known as, night
That's very
first.
interesting. Now, let me ask you
Mhm.
this thing with, it almost sounds like you've got the elites. We'll use the word elites, even though it's a loaded word, but we'll
Yeah,
go with that.
the super rich,
The super rich, whatever, they've
right?
basically, it's like, that deal with the devil kind of thing,
It
you
it
know.
is. It
Y-
basically is.
Give us what we want and you can feed on them, and just, but we're never going to be part of the food thing, of the,
Exactly. No, that's exactly what's been going on. It's all politics. It's all
okay.
religion. It's what Trump has gotten himself into with these deep
Mhm.
state people and uh
Well, it's, and you know what? And it's really funny because you mentioned it. Sometimes me, I talk to a lot of people, and everybody's like, everybody has nostalgia, because it was like, how did this, within the last 2, 3, let's say 5 years, it was
it's
ramped
been
up with
5
so much
years
darkness that
since
everybody is like, where did this
WikiLeaks.
come from? And everybody
Yeah.
feels like, like, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
where, you know,
How did this happen? How
how
did this start?
exactly, how did this happen? And I mean,
WikiLeaks.
yeah, well, WikiLeaks, yeah, that was
Yeah,
that. Yeah, if you stop
that
and think
was
about it, yeah.
that was the first low blow that
Right, and
happened.
everybody was
But
still kind of in
long
disbelief.
long before that, the military hired Trump so they could get out of this whole nightmare satanic thing of
Why do you
trading
think that they decided to do that? Did
because
they think,
they got sick of trading children for technology with the aliens from Orion.
Okay.
The aliens were planning on harvesting us,
Right.
at Agenda 21, and all the
Mhm.
Satan worshippers in the politics and the Illuminati were all for the harvest. Oh,
Well, it makes it sound like this has been happening for quite some time. It's
it
like,
has. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. It's exactly what's been happening.
yeah,
I have no doubt with all these societies that just go up and disappear like a fart in the wind.
yes,
Where do they go?
yeah. There's the people
Yeah,
don't realize um,
yeah. I
is that
believe.
there's such a thing as throwaway children.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be like an actual kidnapping of a child. There's a lot of kids that are throwaway kids that there's a steady more than people realize are
nowadays,
out there.
nowadays it's even worse with the internet
Exactly, exactly. Oh yeah,
because then they can
absolutely.
communicate from a great distance and set up things and
Well, the thing is this, that unless you have a parent or anybody that even puts out a missing persons report, somebody can just disappear. Sometimes we think that with technology that's impossible, and I beg to differ. People can disappear, especially a kid, um, very easily, especially if there's no missing person report, nothing. No, in other words, that saying, no body, no crime.
yeah, no evidence, nothing, no crime.
Nothing to say, well, what happened to this child or this, whatever.
But once it's done over and over again, it's
Well, now it's because I think that a lot of let's go to the most recent this thing with Balenciaga. It's like everybody's like, eh.
yeah, they love that. They love talking about it, which is really weird
Yes.
because I have so much more information on so much other, other things that have happened long before Balenciaga.
Oh
Why
yeah.
weren't they upset about that stuff? That really bothers me.
Well, I think that m- most people, how can I say it? Everybody looks,
Yeah, I
and
know.
you remember that
I know.
that movie Zoolander, that it was funny,
Yeah, yeah,
and everybody
right.
was laughing, because it exaggerated, and it's almost like, yeah, we know those people artsy, they're kind of weird, but that was
Yeah,
it. It's the extent of it. They're just weird and eccentric and peculiar,
right.
and now everybody's realizing, like,
Questioning.
mainstream. I hate to use that.
Yeah.
No, it's not quite. It's a little bit more than peculiar. All right.
Yeah, what the hell's going on here?
Exactly. And it's just, and I'm sure you've heard this. Some people just don't want to see what's in front of them
Yeah, yeah, exactly. People just can't handle it. They see it and they go, I just don't believe it, and they
because
duck away. And it's a weakness. It's a that I think that we just haven't been taught properly. And this is all thanks to this whole brainwashing
yeah,
society that they have robbed people of for
yes,
decades of this
yes,
brainwashing bullshit with the television, the music,
yes,
everything.
yes,
McDonald's, Burger King, left and right,
yeah,
just everything. Everything has been brainwashing or some type of manipulation,
yeah,
or population control.
sure.
They really, with Lyme, flu, Ebola, all of it.
I think a lot of people, though, were, how would I say it? When you would present something along what you've just described, maybe even 10 or 15 years ago, it was like a fringe, I want to use that word, conspiracy theory. And
Right.
now
Yeah.
everybody's like, it's like, no, it's not that out there. And it's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I'm going to give you a perfect example. Most of the time, we always thought that all these major brands, all they cared about was making money. Let's, and everybody's like, what? What do you mean they're trying to manipulate, more than just like come and buy my product? I think a
Right.
lot of people are like, what happened to just a company that put on a commercial just so that they will go and, buy their product? Everybody's had like a very, very rude awakening to
Yeah,
see the manipulation from different sources. It's
yeah,
incredible.
they've really upped the whole satanic
Yes.
display, if you will, on
Hmm.
display. Yeah.
Yes.
So
They've really, yeah,
like it's
before
in your
it was
face,
much more, it was, how can I say, the only way you would hear about it is like, well, when we heard about, what's his face, Manson, these cults, it's like, oh yeah, there's always been these
Right.
weird cults. But they're
Yeah.
like scattered, yeah, those weirdos, whatever.
Yeah, right. There's nothing to it. Well, it just turns out that the entire political structure, half of it, are a group
Yes.
of Satan worshipers,
And I
and
think
they
that that's
have
really
been
rocked a lot of people's world.
they've been ruling in secret with this Christian side
Mhm.
together in something called the balance. Like, have you ever seen Constantine, the movie
Yes.
Constantine?
Yes.
There's a balance. There's a
Yes.
balance between the demons and the angels, and they work together. They're hanging out with each other at the bar. You know, they're getting along, right? And that's what's
Yeah.
been going on here in the political realm and
Okay.
in the elite realm. This is
Okay.
why you'll see Donald Trump hanging out with Epstein. They all hang out and get to get along together until revelations happened, which happened
Well, yeah, right. It's like,
September 23rd, 2017, the beginning of the star alignment, the great star alignment. You
well,
aware of that?
what is that?
The great star alignment that happened September 23rd, I think it was the 23rd or 24th,
Okay.
2017. It was the woman Virgo with child Jupiter in her
Mhm.
womb,
Okay.
with wearing a crown of 12, which was Leo, and three other planets, with the sun
Okay.
under, with the moon under feet and the sun on her back.
Okay.
When that star alignment happened, I knew that Saint John was telling that the Bible was truthful, that there
Okay.
was some truth to the Bible.
Okay.
And I know that might sound difficult for a lot of you. I I've never been one of the Bible. I've never practiced Christianity. I've been mostly Buddhist, but what I realized is that star alignment happens every 7,000 years.
Okay.
How did a man who lived 1,500 years ago know a 7,000-year-old star alignment was going to happen right at this time with
Okay.
everything that's going on with the politics? And if you look at
Right. Exactly.
the Revelations picture,
Mhm.
with Jesus standing on the ball over with a rainbow, sitting on a rainbow, and half of them are going to heaven and the other half are going to hell.
Right.
It's exactly what's going on today, and we're just about to it's just about to come to an end of this darkness, confusing time, um, where tribulations will begin. And tribulations is when a lot of people get arrested, and
Okay.
I I have a theory about how that's going to happen, but let me get back
Okay.
to St. John real quick. So
Okay.
what I think happened was they abducted St. John and they brought him into the future and showed him a possible outcome and then returned him into the past and he wrote
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
How did a man 1,500 years ago know a 7,000-year-old star alignment? Impossible unless he was shown. It makes
Let me
no
ask you
sense.
something.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do you think then, like, for example, we're
Jesus. Oh, sorry.
well, no, I'm thinking because in all these different ancient civilizations, I want to go ancient,
Mhm.
whether you said the Sumerians, all these ancient civilizations that came and went, and even in a different continent where we're talking the Mayans and the Incas, which supposedly these civilizations, were no. Do you think that that's why they had so many rituals having to do with human sacrifice?
That's exactly why. Yeah. The aliens built the pyramids. The pyramids,
Okay.
they're nothing more than welcome mats for them.
Okay.
A stairway to heaven or McDonald's. It's a McDonald's drive-through. They would
Okay.
show up and they would go, "What's for dinner?"
All right.
And these sacrifices would be performed for them to eat, to
Okay.
honor the gods. That they're the true source of human sacrifice. Now, what happened was these humans started to leave. Like, for perfect example, Moses leading the
Mm-hmm.
Jews out of Egypt,
Okay.
out of Orion's control. And God helped the Jews escape by parting the sea, or was it a river?
No, it was the Red Sea.
Yeah, it was the Red Sea,
Well, it's
right?
yeah, right, exactly, yes.
So it was a sea. So by parting the sea, and I just with all the evidence that I've seen, and all the evidence that I have, and if you really go through the evidence and you see what I
Mhm.
see, I can say it's all technology. The whole thing, all of it is extraterrestrial technology. Parting the sea, gravitic tractor beam stuff,
Right, and the people at that
building
time explain it the best they can
building
from
building the pier
non-technological terms because
building the pyramids, tractor beam stuff, anti-gravity tractor beam stuff. They said that in the Mayan, pyramids were built in one night.
Mhm.
It just and also, how is Jesus coming back for a second coming? he
Right,
he is
exactly.
coming he is coming back.
Right,
It's only a
exactly.
matter of time, and I know he is. I'm not even Christian, even after finding all this evidence. I'm
Right.
still a Buddhist, but I know that Jesus Christ is for sure coming back. How do I know? Time travel. They have the
Okay.
technology, and I think that is what happened. They spliced a human, and they
Mhm.
artificially inseminated Mary. And what have we
Okay.
been hearing about all these abductees, especially in the 90s, 80s,
Yes.
and 90s? All these women were getting artificially inseminated and
Mhm.
growing all these allegedly growing fetuses, and then they would show up 3 months into the pregnancy and steal the child.
Right,
It's the
exactly.
same thing. It's the same thing with Mary, except this being was half them. Now, I don't know if he looked like them. He may have. He may very
Oh,
well
but
have. But
even if you look at the Greeks, you hear about all these the gods seducing young women
yeah,
and impregnating them,
that's
and then
right.
you would have Hercules and things like I mean, that kind of
That's right.
story where they were not quite gods, but they were not quite human. But yeah, that was very common where young women would be seduced, where these gods would come in this different forms.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
so
I mean, if there's any takeaway from this, I think it's a positive one, because it proves that God was actually real
okay.
scientifically. It's only a matter of time.
Do
Uh,
you think that
I know
that
that they're going to tell the truth. They have to.
w- boy, that's a big truth.
They have to. They're exposed.
Well, that's the thing I was gonna say. I don't think that they're gonna do it voluntarily. It's not gonna be like I don't think that especially something that's gone on so long, because think about the enormity of it.
Well, wait until the people find out that they've been secretly trading them children since
Ah,
the 30s and 40s as food. You
that's a
see,
horrible
the
thing.
military already knows. This is the Great Awakening. This is the storm that's coming. It's a
Right.
storm coming to them once the people find out that their taxpayer money has been going to these
Oh
satanic
yeah.
sacrifices that the Satan worshippers have been performing by stealing children and giving them to the Greys, who in return gives them to the Alpha Draconians, who want them alive at the time of the killing
Right,
for
for the
for
adrenochrome.
the fear, the
Yes, that
looch, and the adrenochrome,
right, that's
and
produced
all of it.
with the fear. Produces a type of hormone in the body.
All kinds of stuff, all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff, like,
Hmm.
torturing somebody for 45 minutes to an hour before death.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
It
It's
just
not
makes
just a question of killing. No, it's just
no,
not that. No.
it's a torture involved.
Mhm,
That's why all the
mhm.
Satan worshippers like to torture children.
Yeah,
But this afforded these Satan worshippers to create these child pedophile rings that have been rampant throughout
yes.
the government, all of the government, NASA, the DIA, the Pentagon, all of it. And you can see I've collected not only all the alien stuff that I could possibly find on the internet, but I've also collected all of the government and elite, satanic elite pedophile stuff too.
Mhm. Rushan, how far
Um,
do you think I'm gonna go here with the American government. How far back do you think that goes?
Well, I mean, if you look at the groundwork of
Mm-hmm.
Washington D.C., you will
Right.
find that there is the satanic upside down star
Right.
that leads right in front of the White House door.
Okay.
So you got to ask yourself, well, this thing has been around forever. It's been around forever. This whole
Okay.
time they were doing this pedophile crazy stuff thousands and thousands of years ago. These demon lizard beings taught them this. Um
Okay. So in other
as
words, what you're saying, even it wasn't something that once we were established, then it was a takeover. It was even from the beginning, from the inception.
yes, from the inception when they showed up and taught human beings that adrenochrome, torture, raping children,
Right.
doing this is good and okay, and eat children, and that's fine.
Right.
That's what they did. They taught
And you
them
know
this.
what? That's and I guess what I'm trying to that I think most people is that is so anti-nature. Even
Yeah,
animals
it's
will
extremely
not eat their
disgusting.
young. They, on the contrary,
No,
because they
it's
know
yeah,
that
I know.
that's the only way to survive is to
Right.
procreate and have your young survive.
Right. Yeah, eating the same DNA as yourself is that's
Yes.
very disruptive to your DNA. It destroys
Yes.
your
This is so
DNA. But
anti-nature, anti-life. How's that?
it's very possible that the elite, if you want to call them that, are not exactly human, entirely human.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very possible that they might be Canaanites, all stemming from Adam and Eve, which I don't necessarily believe that story. It doesn't make any sense to me because what
Okay.
about 70,000 years ago when human beings became human beings and all of those before humans, like the Neanderthal and all of them before human
Right.
beings were experiments to get to human beings.
Right.
That's the whole alien experimenting that they were doing. I've no doubt. That's why they were
Right.
all,
Yeah.
building
They
up
found
to.
they have found out that there's a lot of different offshoots of humans that just variations of humans, modern humans that just
Yeah,
didn't quite make it.
right.
Besides, like, everybody had always heard of Neanderthals and stuff. And even then, like you said, they never thought that there was any crossbreeding. And there was because now the DNA
Well, we've been
finds
told a
that
lie.
that happened.
We've been
What do you think?
deceived because we've been being used as food. That's why the
So
aliens have
another,
been
but
kept
basically
secret.
what you're saying is that we were crossbred, like how people crossbreed cattle to get the meatiest. I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but
Well,
that's a horrible thought.
I think we were bred to be a somewhat intelligent but somewhat stupid,
Well, we've been
but
dumbed down. Yeah,
strong race. I think that was the
right.
point, to work.
Hmm.
So, that way they're not incredibly intelligent where they go, you know what, this is bullshit. We're out of here. You know?
Right,
And
right.
so, but they were strong enough to keep up with the work they needed. But
Do you think that so basically you're saying that there's one of them that is trying to protect us, but I guess my point is
yes.
because
Oh, they
sometimes
have
I
been here.
think a lot of people get that believe in this version always are waiting for the aliens to come and save us. And I
Right.
think that that's in a way it's a mistake because that makes us like not be responsible for, well, what are you going to do about it? What, you're waiting for the aliens that are going to come in like the cavalry
Well, I
coming
don't
over the
know. I
hill?
don't I don't know what they're going to do, but I know that they're coming and I know that it's coming soon. In fact, I know just by watching that the positive aliens have been here since 2016 patrolling our skies. They
Okay.
have been here and so I've heard in 2016 they erected something called the barrier around our solar system to
Okay.
protect us from the Orion Group, and then to find evidence of them being betrayed by the military in 2018. The uptick in these energy ball vehicles, that's what I call them.
Hmm.
They look like miniature suns, and I know that they're the positive aliens from um, uh, evidence of them chasing with. And they look like they have cop lights on them. They're
Okay.
chasing these bad guys. But So I know that they're good, and they've been patrolling our skies for quite some time now, in mass groups. I mean, like hundreds of vehicles.
Let me ask you, do you think that they're ever going to use the threat of, hey, the aliens are here to take over, so we're gonna have to have martial law? Do you think they're ever gonna go
I
down
think
that
that
road?
I think that with everything that's happened, and there's a lot of information. There's a lot of things that I've been paying attention to,
Mm-hmm.
that no one else has. Watching the dismantling of Agenda 21, and to
Okay.
know that the Satan worshippers had no idea that was happening or
Okay.
did happen, for them to come out going, ha 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 ha, ha, prepare to
Right.
get.
They thought they didn't have to worry about it, that they were
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Well, they were told for 30 years that this was going to happen. This was a for sure thing, and it didn't happen. I mean, this is the reason why they got Joe Biden into office, to pull the trigger.
let me ask you, when you say, and I know exactly what a Satanist is, but sometimes, I'm sure you're familiar with Anton LaVey, from the
Yeah,
1960s. And I want to say he was more of a showman than anything. I want to say that true
yeah,
Satanists are a little bit darker, quite more darker than that.
yes.
You know.
I believe that behind the scenes he was a sick, perverted
Oh no, he was
bastard.
sick, but he was more. He also wanted to just. He also
He-
was kind of like wanted to get pictures with all the stars. Like.
well, I'm sure he did.
Oh
Um,
no, no, but some of these, because I think sometimes especially in our society that we're so s- everything is celebrity or being seen. I think that the really dark, powerful ones have. It's like there's power in anonymity. How's that?
yeah,
The real, truly,
yeah,
the ones you have to really worry about are the ones
yeah,
that if they said their names, you'd go, "Who's that?" Or
right,
if you saw their face, you'd go, "Who's that?"
right, yeah.
Those
Like
are the ones
the
that you would
Rothschilds and
never like.
Rockefeller and all
Yeah,
those people who parade around saying that they're Jews when they're not.
right.
They're
And I
not
know that
Jews.
there's a lot of uh, as far as origins, and a lot of it is what you described, where the history as we've been told is not quite accurate. How's that?
Well, I mean, for us
As
to
far
find
as
out that the whole alien thing has to do with Satanism, and not only that, but the whole God thing, the Christian thing, has to do with aliens. I mean, these things are like, no one's ever heard of that kind of stuff before,
right. Well,
especially with the Satan worshippers, with their connection to the extraterrestrials. So,
you know what?
um,
This I'm going to go with the most recent pope and put it on him. Why not? He's the one. He's brought things to the Vatican, which is supposedly the governing body of Catholicism. Stuff that people are like, what? It's like, you
yeah,
sure you're the Catholic, you're the head of the Catholic Church, and it's like,
right,
not really. It's like that was
yeah.
taken over, I think, quite a while back, unfortunately.
They all know the truth. They've been squirreling away technologies this whole time down there. And if you look at the rest of that page, we were made, you'll see
Yes.
it goes on, with depictions of hell, and it's everything. It's everything that has been going on in the deep underground military bases. It's the depictions of, you see, they even have a picture of night first. That's where they made the deal. And I think the deal was made because they
Okay.
got tired of fighting each other, and the positive alien said, all right, you know what, you can have them for a certain amount of time. You see, they know, the Pope knew. Look at him,
Hmm.
he's carrying a boulder and
Okay.
wading through blood.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
pretty
what does that
disturbing.
say? What does that say?
That's pretty
How
disturbing.
Christian is that? You know what I
No,
mean?
it's not at all.
So the what that says to me is that they knew all about the adrenochrome harvest, and they had to let it happen. And that was the deal. But this is what they've been doing, deep underground military bases. Although they haven't been doing it to adults, they've been doing it to children, which has been ripping them up and torturing them for their adrenochrome blood and everything else that comes out of it. But yeah, that's what all these depictions are about. Hell was actually a
Okay.
real place. It wasn't a place to get to when you die.
Right, like in the
Whatever
afterlife.
whatever that is was a fear tactic. ooh, if you don't be
Right.
good, you're not going to go
Exactly.
to heaven. And if you're
Right.
bad, you're going to burn in hell. And that's not exactly what's going
Right.
on here. What is going on here is that these demon like creatures, which are really extraterrestrials, have been eating us this
Okay.
whole fucking time.
Right. In other
Yeah,
words, it's not the afterlife. This was present time,
no,
as just we were just not aware of it.
exactly. Yes, exactly. Until
Now,
now.
do you think that the question why they hid it from us? I mean, do we have any power in all of this?
Yeah.
As in
Well,
to revolt?
when the truth comes out, it will all be said and done. It will all be finished. So there won't be able with the the deep underground military bases have mostly all been destroyed. In fact, I think that with all these volcanoes happening today all over
Mhm.
everywhere, I think that might
Yeah.
actually be the lava being pushed up through these deep underground things to kill them all. So
Yeah, we had, I think the last
that's
ones, the
what
last shocks was, like, around Indonesia. Yeah, but that area's been active out there.
but we do have evidence when they took over Area 51. There was an unprecedented amount of activity at Area 51 on December 7th, 2018, that lizard people were coming out of the ground. And when I heard that information, I was like, holy shit, really? And
Okay. I had
I
not heard
took
that.
that as evidence. And
Okay.
12 days later, a gigantic pyramid shaped craft appeared
Okay.
above the Pentagon at 4 o'clock in the morning. This thing was massive. It was a tetrahedron, and it was a
Mhm.
black pyramid shaped craft. About each side was about the size of a football field.
Okay.
So it we have four different perspectives of the vehicle from different video, four different video. So this
Okay.
told me that the information beforehand, 12 days earlier, was true. That what happened was the military double crossed the aliens and
Okay.
ended Agenda 21. The
Okay.
aliens 12 days later showed up to find out what the fuck they were doing, betraying them.
Let me ask you, can for my listeners or my viewers that are not familiar, what is Agenda 21?
Agenda 21 was originally designed to be an adrenochrome harvest of humanity by the aliens. The aliens were going to take over, kill most people, harvest them, and the remaining few were about to be enslaved. That was Agenda 21 and Timeline 2.
Okay.
Timeline 1, which is the reason why it's called Timeline 1, is because it was to go on further, is Agenda 2030, which I believe will be a nuclear war. And I
Do
get
you
that
that's
information from EBE3, who's actually me from the future.
Let me tell you something. Okay. Okay. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Ryushin.
Hold on. Wait.
Sure.
Let's go back to that. What? Rewind.
Of EBE3.
Yeah.
EB3 is in the alien interview,
Okay.
and well, he looks like a gray,
Mhm.
and he warns the world, or well, he warns the military back in 1964 that a man will come and weaken your democratic mechanism by appealing to your species' most primitive instincts:
Okay.
fear, tribalism, political and religious dogma.
Okay.
There will be international condemnation. And as a response, he will order a preemptive nuclear strike that will proliferate into global thermonuclear war. The initial exchange only kills a few million people, but it's the resulting radiation that destroys most of your kind.
That's
And
horrible.
then he goes on to say that my species is a evolutionary result. So, after a year of going over and over and over with him, it he was the only one that I was stuck on. And it
Okay.
took me about a year to go, okay, this is real. And then when I started to listen to it, I realized more and more that it was actually me from the future,
Okay.
thousands of years from the future,
Okay.
in 1964, being interrogated by some of these military men, right? Wright Patterson Air Force Base.
Were you, how can I say, were you coerced in saying that, or did you purposely come back to say that, I
Oh,
guess?
purposely. Yeah, I memorized the entire message, so I know the
Okay.
entire message by heart, but I know that at some point I have to send myself back to 1964 to go through this whole process. Now, the last time I heard that EBE3 was still alive was
Mhm.
John Lear mentions EBE3. There is a video out there that will be released to the public with EBE3.
Okay.
And the interviewer George Knapp goes, "Well, what does he say?" And he says, "Well, I don't know what it says. I haven't been able to see the video." This was in the late '80s,
Okay.
and then in 2016, lo and behold, EB3 is there in Alien Interview talking. It
Okay.
was released by a CGI artist
Uh,
who did CGI work for Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
okay.
But when I look at it, it took me a while to figure out that he was used as a to confuse the people
Okay.
into thinking that it was fake, and well,
Right, that is CGI
it's because
effect.
he's a CGI artist. That's
Right,
all.
right, right. Yeah.
And but when I started listening to it, and then I started really listening to it, and there are three parts so far, three
Okay.
parts of the message that have been released over the past 6 years.
Okay.
And it's been 4 years since the last part of the message, and everything that he has said has lined up exactly to what's been going on today. And not only this, but he speaks with a Buddhist mentality.
Okay.
There's it is and it is not, and that type of attitude is correct, correct mind. So
Okay.
it's very strange, and I guess I have a little bit of evidence of that it's me, but it doesn't really matter anyway. My work is the evidence enough that and all of this is at on the first page, by the way.
Do
There
you
is a video of EB3, but it's more at the bottom.
are you saying, do you think that these happenings are unavoidable?
Yes, yes, yes. Everything that has happened can, will, and does happen. Yes, everything. Even a nuclear war, I don't think that it's avoidable. I think that it's going to happen. The fear, the tribalism, the political and religious dogma, the international condemnation, where does that come from? Well, that will come from the evidence that when someday my work is acknowledged, the evidence of the Nazi death marches being the shape of Orion and the deep underground military bases being identical in the shape of Orion. You see, what the people don't realize is that is evidence of the adrenochrome trade with the extraterrestrials from Orion. It's proof that they've been doing this. So once and this is a big reason why I've been ignored for the past 5 years. I mean, you'd think that someone would come out. I mean, I even figured out that aliens gave electricity to Ben Franklin. Did you know that the electricity that we all have, that was actually a gift from the extraterrestrials who created us? I found evidence to it. And what? Can you? I can't hear you. Can't hear you. I'm glad you can hear me.
Okay, hold on.
Oh, there you are.
Now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I hit the mute button on this stupid thing. Let me ask you, because no, you know that thing about Ben Franklin with the kite and the
Yeah.
key, that picture,
Yes.
as far as the effect of lightning and electricity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. With all the cherubs around him, with this machine in the background. It's like, what the hell is that doing there? All
Well,
these
because
cherubs
there's a
with
lot of
wings.
symbology involved. Let me ask
It's
you,
all
why do you think that it almost seems whether they're forced or they can't help themselves? There's so
well. They
much
have to include
symbolism.
it. They have to include it because it's Revelations. Now is
Okay.
Revelations, and what is it revealing? All the alien stuff. I figured it all out in 2018. God, what the Satan worshippers are, what they've been worshiping, what they've been doing here, the whole, kept finding the evidence to Agenda 21. That was a reality. Having evidence of it being dismantled proves that we were being set up for an alien invasion. Yeah, it's all evidence. And
Do you think there's other planets that this has happened to, or are we the only ones? No, I think
I wouldn't be surprised if there were billions of worlds in
okay.
the exact situation as us.
Okay.
Wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. I have a feeling that they're like, well, if they wake up, then they wake up. If they don't wake up, you can harvest them. And I think that's the
Boy.
deal. I think that's
Okay.
the deal. And I kind of woke up, found the evidence. Although there have been people who have come along throughout time.
Mhm.
Name like I can name a few: Phil Schneider and Alex Collier.
Okay.
Alex Collier has come forward in the early 90s and said that there is the Orion Group. They 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 are they take children and
All
they
right.
give them to the Alpha Draconian as food.
Okay.
And Phil Schneider said it was adrenochrome they were after, and that was in the early 90s. So
Okay.
there have been people who have come forward with this information. Now, it wasn't until, but having the evidence to prove that that's true, that's a different
Right.
story. And that's where
Right.
my story begins. I was just able to find the evidence, and it wasn't even, with those people talking about it, I didn't even notice that stuff until after I figured it all out. I
Right. Like
figured
in
it all
other
out.
words,
I'm like,
that was
oh
like it didn't put a blip on your radar. In other words.
no, I've heard of those people, but
Mhm.
I didn't realize that they were actually saying adrenochrome and eating children and the Orion Group. It never made any sense. I went looking through the evidence and figured it out by looking and examining at the evidence, which led me to the hearsay. And
Okay.
then I started listening to William Cooper, Phil Schneider, Sean Lear, William Tompkins, Alex Collier, and a few others, and found that their information was aligning with the evidence perfectly. So they were telling the truth.
In other words, it's like now that you listened it with different hearing, in other words, different ears, now then it made sense.
Yeah. Now that I have my eyes wide open, yeah, I would go back into William Cooper. He has one where he goes on, he just dumps all of this information for 2 hours. I was coming
Okay.
out with stuff out of that. I
And you
can't
were
even
like,
tell you. Yeah, I'd watch him about 100 times. I could come out with something new. And I was like, my,
okay.
this is incredible. How about this? Project Excalibur. Project
Okay.
Excalibur was specifically designed to kill the aliens in the deep underground military bases. It was
All
a
right.
one megaton warhead that was able to penetrate 1,000 meters of soil.
Okay.
So and that was being worked on in the 80s, and there was nothing pushed harder than getting that done in the 80s. You see, the military knew that they fucked up, and I think they knew
Okay.
that they fucked up very soon after they made the
Okay.
deal with the Orion Group in the 1950s, 1954.
Mhm.
Because a year later they went over everything and they were finding that millions of more people were being abducted and taken, and that
Right.
against what they had agreed upon.
Right. In other words,
And
it's like, yeah, yeah. In other
yeah,
words,
oh
yeah.
yeah, the aliens were like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll get you a list, no problem." Like fuck that shit. Just go in there and take whatever you want. This has
Right.
been our planet anyway.
Right.
They've
Like,
been
well,
here for
yeah.
thousands of
Yeah,
years
we're just
doing this
making you
shit.
feel good, like thinking we're asking you for permission when in reality,
They've been here this whole time, even
yeah.
long before the US military. They were living
Right.
in caves, flying around in cloaked vessels. They have cloaked ships
Mhm.
where they fly around. They just grab a couple of people and they have their way
You
with
know,
them
it's
for
really
them
funny
now.
that there's been so many, when you look at the Time Machine, the first movie and the second movie, which it's the same
Which
theme,
one?
which is, well, the first, the
The
idea
one in the
is
50s?
the 50s and the other,
Yeah.
even the Morlocks, but it's
Yeah.
always been that the simple-minded humans are basically our food. I mean,
Yeah.
that,
That's what's been going on. And it's
so
very interesting that, there are movies that point in that direction.
yeah,
Um,
H.G. Wells, like,
it
it's like
just
he was.
it says a lot to me that, these people might have known something.
Right, and it makes you think. I mean, don't get me wrong, sci-fi is sci-fi, and
Yeah.
especially during the times that they come up with these stories, but it's that theme where the future for him was, a set of, because the from the underground are
Yeah.
eating, are harvesting. Basically, that's what they would do. They would harvest them. They would feed them, let them plump up. They weren't scared of
Right.
anything, and then just set out alarms when dinner time came around.
Right.
And yeah, it's far fetched, but now when you look at it with different eyes, it's like how
Yeah.
much of this
With all
was, yeah.
Yeah, how much of this was known and, exaggerated upon to fit a story inside a story.
Well, of
Very
course, when you
creative.
put it under the heading of science fiction, it's like, okay, so it's
Yeah.
way out there, but it's just science fiction. It's fiction.
And it was the elite, the ruling class, who's been doing it as well. So I think it's very interesting.
Okay, that
Uh, you
they've.
know, that
So
that
do you
the whole
think that?
time machine thing where they evolved with the the ruling class being the more smarter, the brains, and the lower species was more stupid and bronze, but with the bronze.
Do you think they also harvesting our genetic material?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah, big time. DNA. That's
Right.
it's a known um uh currency.
Okay.
Yep, all throughout the universe. Yeah, that's what they use. They use it as a currency.
Right. That's
DNA.
what I had heard. One of the theories was that the interest in these extraterrestrials and humans, that you would think, okay, is that because we do have rich genetic material.
Yes. And if you look at the last I don't know if you like Q or not.
No, I've read everything.
His last post was mankind is repressed, we will be repressed no more. And what I've come to realize is that with my work, it has been running parallel with this whole thing. So it's
Okay.
very possible that I being EB3, which
Hmm.
you'll find out soon enough,
Okay. Okay.
is that I probably delivered the message, the
That's a
plan,
very interesting concept.
the plan.
Do you think that the so-called Men in Black is that part of the extraterrestrials, or what is that?
I
If
think that those people are the black hats.
okay,
Yeah, I think
but
that they're the black
humans,
hats. I've heard stories that they are extraterrestrial, but I mean it's very possible. Trust me, they're walking around right next to you in the checkout
right?
lines. You don't know. You don't.
Okay.
I've seen it on the streets of Japan when I was living in Japan doing a monastic Zen Buddhist training. A
Okay.
man showed up at the monastery, very
Hmm.
plain, very normal, very very plain.
Right.
And one day there was a break where you could get to go out, and do shopping or walk around, go to the library, that kind of stuff. And I was out and I was walking out of a convenience store, and that man was standing there, and he said something to me I don't remember, but his eyes turned to the slits,
Wow.
and he got much bigger, much taller, and I felt like this cowering down in front of him, like, oh, please don't hurt me. And I'm not one to be like that to anybody, even
Okay.
if they're taller than me. I'm not one
Right.
to step down, but that's what I got from him when and it was just like it was it freaked me out. It freaked
I
me out.
bet.
It wasn't like terrorizing, like what I think the first encounter that I've had with the gray in my face, who I think is
Right.
actually EB3. I think he came to me before so I
Okay.
could get a look at him because he floated through the wall and disappeared through the wall while he was looking at me. He floated through backwards and through the
Okay.
wall. I think that was EB3.
Well, see,
But
and this is the thing. I want to say part of what you're describing, it's almost like that. I'm going to use Hollywood because sometimes as a point of reference, everybody
and I don't
understands.
tell anybody this, by the way. I don't tell anybody this.
Oh, I'm glad you're talking
So
about it. But you know, in that movie, that it's almost like the stuff is in front of you, but for some reason we can't see it.
they
And it
live.
almost sounds like you have moments where you're able to see what's there or what the
Um
disguise is.
well, I think that, some of these things were allowed for me to see.
Okay.
I think that, um yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's almost like whether you want to call it cloaking or camouflaging,
Yeah.
whichever, and that
Extra
majority of us
dimensional
don't see
maybe.
it, right? We don't
Extra
see it. We
dimensional.
can see it also.
They
Um,
might be they might be slipping into a different dimension where it's time's all weird and you
yeah,
know,
there could be pockets. There could be pockets like a little envelope where you just step in and you're basically out of the. God knows we're just starting to get a handle on that, on what the
yeah,
possibilities are.
well, yeah, with technology. Yeah, these beings are billions of years more advanced, so
Sure, sure. And
yeah.
we're just kind of like, I think, like you said, also now with more people like cameras and phones and the availability of capturing something that people are
Yeah.
looking at it
Oh, for
and going,
sure.
"What?"
For sure.
It c-
Yeah. Oh, with the number of UFOs coming out every day, it's
yes,
incredible. There's like
yes.
4 or 5, 10 UFOs a day that come out.
So, do you think that that congressional hearing they had about
That's
UFOs
all
that they had
bullshit.
to? Okay, thank you. I was going to say,
That's
nobody's
all
nobody's
bullshit.
ever done anything
They're
about it, and all of a sudden they're
they're
interested.
all full of shit. They know exactly who they are, what they are. They don't call them UAPs. They call them ETVs, extraterrestrial vehicles. Don't let them put a bag over your head and, call it good. It's all bullshit. The Air Force Memorial behind the Pentagon aligns to Orion's belt at 33 degrees in the night sky. What does that say? The Pentagon is the center of the pentagram.
Okay,
They worship the aliens from Orion. They're part of this whole satanic bullshit nightmare stuff. That's why they got involved with it. And I guess they got sick of it and said, you know what, this is over. And they double crossed the CIA and the Black Hats, which are also known as the Delta Orions, which is Delta is the 4.
mm-hmm.
And that means that if you look up Delta Orion, it comes up Minnetonka Orion, which is the off star in Orion's belt, which is said that these negative aliens come from.
Okay.
So many
That
different sources.
Why do you think that that's one of the reasons why now, after so many years of everybody just calling them UFOs, they insist on calling them UAPs? And everybody's like, why can't we just keep
Yeah,
calling them UFOs?
yeah, it's definitely bullshit.
It's almost
Um,
like they want to redefine that somehow. I don't know. I think it's questionable that after so many years of being ignored, and that most people, people that had come forward with any type of information about UFOs were poo-pooed. All of a sudden, they're holding congressional hearings. It's like, what happened? What made this change all of a sudden?
yeah.
And so we'll see. We'll see what comes of that.
Sorry about this. I had a
No,
message I have to get to.
not a problem. Not a problem. Rushin, anyway, we have come up. I mean, we could keep talking as far as I'm concerned, but I understand. Um, this is for my podcast listeners. What is your website address?
Yes, it's the orionlines.com.
Okay.
And
And
I have a free book. You can
okay.
download the free book. It has everything in it, and
Okay.
I could go on for hours and hours and hours. Every ancient site in the world aligns to Orion in some way, shape, or capacity.
Okay.
This is why there's many different secret societies, was because Orion was meeting these people at different areas and different times.
Mm-hmm.
And Egypt aligns to Orion, Stonehenge aligns to Orion, the World Trade Center footprint, the World Trade Center
Mm-hmm.
buildings,
Right.
those are the same identical shape as the Egyptian pyramids, and their footprint, which aligns to Orion's belt. The Air Force Memorial aligns to Orion.
Wow.
The um, deep underground military bases is in the shape of Orion. The Nazi death marches are in the shape of Orion. It goes on and on and on. The Stonehenge in Germany aligns to Orion. There are more places in England, all over England, where it's all
Mm-hmm.
Orion. Scotland, the Chinese pyramids, the Zia
Right.
pyramids,
Mm-hmm.
Teotihuacan in Mexico is
Yes.
Orion. Bolivia, Romania is Orion. The Nazca Lines are Orion. There is Orion drawn on the big island of Hawaii, I think, and the Hopi is in the shape of Orion. And I think that,
Really.
the aliens might just come from Orion. But I'm not too sure, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know for sure. You know what I
So do
mean?
you think that they were instructed or they were just like being what's the appeasement? Do you think it was one of those deals where,
Who?
if
The people?
yeah, the people
Yeah,
whoever
of
built
course, of
them.
course. The people were appeasing the gods. Yeah,
Okay.
they love them so much. Oh, here at every single location, ladies and gentlemen, that I just named, there were human sacrifices and
Yes.
mass graves
Yes.
and
I agree.
slaughter stones. They were
Yes.
killing human beings and to pleasure these bully fucking aliens who've been coming here
Yep.
eating us.
Yep.
And it's
They
very
even have them
close.
in.
It's very close for humanity standing up. This is the storm they're talking about. This is the great awakening. Unfortunately for me, it's been 5 years of sitting here getting very sick. I've been very sick from this because they had to ignore it. They had to stop it in order to capture the deep state, which I think they're going to use a fake alien invasion to capture the deep state, because they would go willingly into the military's arms instead of being picked off one by one by one, or have this, there has to be a mass panic. And
Right.
for the elite, they know or think that an alien invasion is going to happen. This would allow the military to simply just pick them up. Come on, it's time to go into the deep underground military. But the aliens are here. Look,
Okay. I see where you're
it
going with
just
that.
makes sense. It makes sense. I have a feeling that that's what's going to happen. And, just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, what choice do we have? It's like hold tight.
Yes. So all of the evidence is at the orionlines.com. It goes on and on and on. If you find something you don't believe, you can always just skip over it and keep going.
Sure.
I beg you. It took me a very long time of sitting there going over this stuff over and over and over again and again and again, asking myself, is this true? And I
Right.
applied my Buddhists from 30 years of doing Zen Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
The core, training is
Okay.
asking yourself, is this true or not?
Right.
Is this true? And that's what I applied to my research. And lo and behold, yes. Oh,
Okay.
and we have been ruled by an alien species who's been eating us, who the elite have been worshiping
Boy.
this whole time.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
take them, not us. Yeah,
When
that
people
kind of
find
thing.
out that, and they find out the whole God thing, they're going to lose their minds. And the elite, the military already know. They know what's coming. They have the looking glass device. They knew this outcome was going to happen. In fact, they knew about this outcome, about somebody coming along with all the evidence proving all this shit was real. They might have known this 30
Right.
years ago and set us up
Okay.
because they knew somebody was coming along with all the evidence. They could have set us up for Agenda 21. It might very well be possible that I'm responsible for Agenda 21. But that has a lot to do
Okay.
with
That's you know
temporal
what?
viewing, the temporal viewing, because they have the looking glass device, which
Right.
is a quantum temporal time viewing device. They also have something called the Orion Cube, which was a gift by the Orion Group in order to see possible outcomes into the future. Yeah. Yeah. Like
But then
also like
again, I
crystal
mean, we could
balls.
also go into like all
Like
possible outcomes.
yeah, yeah, like crystal balls. Let me look into your future. What is that? That's alien technology, the real ones. The real ones, which is I'm sure all swooped up by
Change
the
things, the
elite.
outcome changes.
Well, I mean, you by knowing the future you can change the outcome, yes. So then, it just says a lot why they ignored me all these years, because the first year after I figured it all out in 2018, I started to attack the entire system on Twitter, and I did so for 8 months with all the evidence. I made NASA budge. It was the only ones that I could get to admit tiny super intelligent alien beings may have visited Earth and humans simply didn't notice them. December 4th, 2018. But after that, it was 2 weeks after I began attacking them. At first, it was here, hey guys, what is this? Look what I figured out. And then hello, are you still there? Hello. Oh, Marlene. Hello, hello, hello.
And to stream, here we go.
Yep.
Okay,
Hey,
you must have
I'm
been saying
still,
something.
I'm still here.
Yeah, we're here. We're here. We got kicked off, and then it just it's almost like the internet like did want a hiccup or something kind of deal.
Yeah, they don't like what I'm saying.
I was you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Here we've been going for like over an hour, and all of a sudden this happened. It's like, yeah, that
So, and
time travel
anyway,
stuff didn't go down
all
good.
all the evidence is at the orionlines.com. I tried to make it as understandable as possible, meaning taking all the dots and
Okay,
putting them in a straight row. So you have to do a little bit of research to connect the dots, but
okay,
not as much as you had to or I had to. So, but it's all there.
okay.
It's all
All
there.
right. I hope you're going to come back because I think we've got a lot more to talk about. I think, like you said, that maybe things will be accelerating in the near future.
I think that it's almost finished. Yeah. It can't go on like this forever.
Hopefully,
This
we'll still have internet after everything is said and done. I'm being such a
uh
wimp. I'm being
maybe
such a wimp.
I know, not for maybe a couple of weeks it might go down, but who knows? Who
Then
knows?
what do we do? Yeah, I know that's so funny.
Yeah.
It depends on yeah. Luckily I remember what life was like pre-internet, so I know I can survive. I can make it. It's not a problem. It's no
Yeah.
hardship.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rishan. It has
You're
been
welcome.
absolutely wonderful to talk to you, and I want to wish you the best of luck
Thank you so
on
much.
all your projects. Take care.
Be well.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, I gotta. All right, I gotta look at the thing. I don't know if we totally, you know, like. But anyway, gosh, this is one of those guests like smoke pours out of your ears, like so much change. And I guess, like I've said before, human beings, we are creatures of habit. The majority of us, there's always the A types, which is like change. But the majority of us, like, in other words, yeah, change is okay, but an incremental, small, nothing too heavy duty. And let's face it, I want to say for the last 3 or 4 years, this thing has picked up speed where I think that's why a lot of people are wigging out because it's like, yeah, we change is good. And we're like, okay, but not like this, not like this. And unfortunately, our love affair with the familiar or routines or things like that have totally made us not want to see what's been in front of us for quite some time, by the way. I'm not going to say in 3 or 4 years, quite some time, because it was too uncomfortable. We didn't want to see it. It would kind of skew the normalcy that we live in that, we think this is how I can operate. This is how I make my world take, I'm going to say especially, I'm going to talk here in the United States. Okay. Where, let's face it, the majority of Americans didn't have to worry about surviving. Let's say once upon a time, you remember if you want to go back to prehistoric times or early humans, where every day you had to fight to survive, whether it was to find food, to defend yourself from animals that wanted to eat you. And fast forward where we are now, where survival is only as far away as the drive-through of KFC. you know, KFC. There was no, and yeah, we had, like, let's say we could have some type of weather, like a hurricane and stuff like that. But even then, we have all these things in place to help us either evade it, protect ourselves, recover from it. That even then, it's not a question of, in other words, we've insulated ourselves so much so that we have been, let me see, willingly ignorant of things that were changing in front of us as the years went by. And I think sometimes you would have people that would talk about or write books or about certain things, and people were like, "What a cuckoo bird! Oh, he's peculiar. He's eccentric. He's crazy." Oh, because, and even though some of the things they might say made sense or they provided some type of proof, to actually believe that there was any validity to what that person was saying was like, no, that's, we might have even had that conversation in a subconscious mind or in the back of our heads where, you know what, I'm just going to make the decision that whatever this person is talking about is just, he's crazy. Yeah, nah. If there's any validity, even though they might be saying things that make sense, it's like, boy, that opens, talk about opening Pandora's box. What else is going to come out of there? And then, you know what? Then my world is going to go because all I'm used to is getting up, going to work. If I have kids, going to school, coming back, making plans for the weekend. If we're going to have a party, oh yeah, we're going to have guests come over for Christmas. That world, that normalcy, that routine that we've all gotten used to, and different variations of it, depending on what your life is or what community you live in or whatever. It's like, wait. That's the stuff of science fiction or horror movies or stuff like that. That doesn't fit in my normal world where my survival, my children's, my family's, is assured. You know, because anything beyond that, it opens the door to so many things that, for lack of a better word, take us from being at the top of the mountain to all the way God knows where, but it's not the top. And we've gotten used to thinking we are, all right, the king of the mountain. All right. In our worldview, for better or worse, depending, we always humans have thought of ourselves. Maybe once upon a time we weren't, or, and maybe we were being hunted on the plains or whatever, or when, maybe we hadn't discovered fire or we still lived in caves. But now we've always thought of ourselves as king of the mountains. And anything that made us think that that's not exactly accurate would absolutely be rejected. And by this, I'm talking about the majority of us plebeians, peasants, normal people, normies, whatever you want to call us. That, and I want to say, for lack of a better word, is that the more you love the life you have, as in comfortableness, um, things being, what's that the expected happens, normalcy, you know. Yeah, a little bit of surprise here and there, but don't get too crazy about that. We, believe it or not, we're not that much into surprises because you never know. Not all surprises are agreeable ones. So we've become enamored of that. We've been hypnotized by that. All right. And not wanting to recognize and see things and signs along the way about certain things that have developed, that it's like, man, if I really look into this, it's going to, in the Wizard of Oz, when they pull back the curtain and they find out that the great Oz is just a guy with a machine. It was like, I don't want to see that truth because I want this truth that I've constructed and which makes my world go forward. All right. And then a lot of times when things like that happen, it bites you in the where, in the posterior, sooner or later, whether as a person or collectively, you know. And you can say, well, as an individual, we're good. You'll hear of people being in relationships where things were going on that they didn't want to look at what was going on, let's say in the other partner in the relationship. And all of a sudden it's like a really horrible wake up call and then when they look back in hindsight, especially once the dust has settled, they'll say, man, there was all these signs, all these, that little arrow that I just didn't want to see. It wasn't that it was that hidden, really. It was, but not really. Like I could have found out if I dug a little bit, or certain things happened that even then I had a twinge, but I said, no, it's just my imagination. But then let's extrapolate that out from an individual relationship to whether it's our town, our country, the world, humanity. Let's get where anything that messes with our comfort zone is going to be discounted. And what he was talking about, what Ryushin was talking about, that maybe whether you agree with him or not, whether you think that he's accurate or not, he mentions that he tried to get his book published and that nobody, and you know what? And some people might say, well, but that I believe that. I think that sometimes information is, how can I say, circumvented. How's that? Because somebody will tell you, oh, we're not gonna print that because it's really stinky writing. It's like, who cares? And especially nowadays, all right. So God, it wouldn't be the first. If the yardstick that we were going to measure it as in, wow, that's a real crackpot idea. Okay, so and God, one of many. But when you sometimes um, find yourself overcoming these hurdles that you're like, why not? What's the worst that could come of it? This is my interpretation of my world, of an experience I had. Okay, a lot of food for thought. A lot of food for thought. And yes, interesting times and change is definitely in the air. And I know for a lot of people, that's a scary thing, myself included. But sometimes the only way to get to something better that you realize, wow, this is not as good as I thought, is to change. And sometimes it doesn't happen at that slow crawl that everybody's comfortable with. Sometimes it has to be something a little bit more intense, and which, while it's occurring or when we're anticipating it, how's that? It can be quite like, I don't want this. But then at some point later on, you realize it's like, yeah, it had to be that way. Like if we would have been left to our own devices on our own timing, forget it. Nothing ever happens. No, nothing would ever change. Sometimes things have to be thrust upon us. And it's like, either you're going to go, you're going to go. And like I said, hold tight. So anyway, guys, please come back. I have a lot of interesting guests like Ryushin Malone. First time on Stories of the Supernatural. Other times I'm going to bring back some returning guests. Overall, it's going to be very, very interesting. Like I said, and now we're going into 2023. Let's see what that year brings. But again, um, we live in interesting times. That's the only thing I can say. So till next time, take care.